Beloved by his fellow Italians and collected by some of America's biggest celebrities, Marco Sassone is an artist who is really on an American journey. Marco, welcome. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you very much. That is really an American journey that started very early.
You're in Venice, San Francisco, LA, New York. You're everywhere, and people love your work. Now, what speaks to me, because I'm an amateur artist, what speaks to me is the power of your strokes and the force with which you create light that really focuses on the primary subject of your painting. That is something that I think comes from your heart and from what you see.
Yeah, it is really, basically, I come from a school of painting, from Oskar Kokoschka to my teacher and myself. So from my teacher, I learned the way of Oskar Kokoschka. He had a school of art, which was called the School of Seeing. You see, and then through yourself, you put on canvas your emotions and your reflections. On top of that, I had the Macchiaioli school, which are the Italian Impressionists. They were painting with broken strokes. All this technical mechanism I carried with me to California. And that's why there was an impact there, because you are dealing with creating light and color and reflections. And some critics were saying, yeah, but it's not just in one part, it's throughout the canvas. Yes, and I try to explain that my canvases, you recognize my canvases because they're full. The entire canvas projects an entire vision of life. Okay. Yeah.
I call it power. I think it's each piece is very powerful, and I think power is really speaks to this. So you put it all together in something called an American journey. Why did you decide to do that? Why did you decide to put a book together?
That was actually a creation of love, because the book was journeying in between the journey. Basically, I decided to write it because I was compelled to it. It was almost an act of liberation. I need to write my emotion of my life in art. And these reflections, I do hope that they are received, especially by amateur artists, people in the arts, and artists in general, because this is your core foundation. So I decided to write. I started writing in my studio in San Francisco in the 90s. And I really didn't know how to begin, how to end. But I kept writing on pieces of paper on a variety of subjects. Some subjects were more narrative, other subjects more cultural, intended for the art discourse. And so all these pieces amalgamated in a text that people are finding it fascinating, and I think it's pretty good, actually, when I reread it myself objectively later.
I think it's always good when an artist such as yourself reveals more about him or herself. Sure, of course, you're revealing a lot in your artwork, but when you put it down in words, it seems to reveal that which motivates you to create the painting. And so, for example, you love to teach young artists. You love to give young artists advice on their art career. What do you think this book will say to the young artist who's desperate to get recognized and desperate to make a career of their talent?
Yeah, I touched this subject on the book, and basically, the first thing that I will say, don't listen to anybody. That's the number one. Obviously, the number two is the passion that you have for this art, whether it is painting, whether it's music, singing, whatever. But if you are in the art, you have a passion, and you have to follow your instinct. There is a voice inside all of us that tells us something, but you have to be able to listen to it. Sometimes this little voice is even annoying, but it doesn't matter. You have to listen to the subtleties. They will bring you to recognize yourself. They will bring you to yourself. In other words, you are discovering yourself in the process. And that's why I call it American Journey. American Journey, my life in art, because through painting, I found more of myself. I found the roots, and that was the beautiful part, actually.
You came from Italy, and it seemed to me that when in your early work, it was very dark. There was a lot of things going on, the Venice flood, your friends in Florence. Times were very difficult, but somehow you pressed forward. Tell me about those early beginnings with you.
Well, the early beginning in Florence was wonderful. I studied with a great teacher in Florence. Those were beautiful times. Right after the flood of Florence in 1966, I decided to take a painting trip to go to California. And that was 1967. I arrived in California 23 November 1967. And another world unfolded before my eyes. And that was the beginning of my journey.
So tell me about your impressionistic eyes of this American landscape, because Southern California is very much in landscape and weather like parts of Italy and the south of France. It's very much the same way, with a completely different twist on culture. What did your eyes see?
Yeah, well, basically when I arrived in Laguna Beach, California, I really saw similarity with the Mediterranean in Italy, except for the weather, the palm trees, the sun, and the reflections. They were really strikingly amazing. And from the dark coloration of Florence because of the flood, all of a sudden I started painting on location on wood panels, because that's what I originally did. And I couldn't believe it at that time. I was a kid, and there were always a line of people watching me paint. I guess not many people painted on location. At least I never seen many. And there was, there was a change of subject matter, a change in compositional colors and so forth. And that was my California beginning.
You may have started something, because Laguna Beach, I was just there last weekend. It's the plein air capital of the world, and plein air means that you paint outdoors and you see it as you see it and you paint it.
Yes.
That's a big, major piece of the art culture of Laguna Beach.
Of Laguna Beach, yeah. Actually, I was telling my wife that this Laguna Beach was started by the artist in 1920 or so, and basically they are still painting. There is a group of artists that some of them I know that are still painting on location, and that was my practice when I was young, and I loved it. Except that, when you paint on location and you really want to express yourself in a larger scale, you have to have a larger canvas, larger. And so I switched to canvas. But going back to what you were asking me before about the landscape painting, is that my way of painting was like the Italian Impressionist, with broken colors on the wood. And so when I arrived in California, they saw something different. Mm-hmm. My work was sparkling, and I had an immediate success, basically. And that led me to stay here, and I never went back to Italy, except for, visiting.
Yes, you're an inspiration. Your talent is amazing. Your work is really, really passionate and emotional for a lot of us who are big fans of your work. And of course, you have all these celebrities who own your work as well. You continue to work, you continue to paint and show and exhibit, and now this book. So we so appreciate you being with us. The book is called American Journey by Marco Sassone. Marco, it's been a pleasure having you with us. Continued success and keep painting.
Okay, thank you very much, and good work to you for painting.
Yes, someday I'll share my painting with you, Marco.
All right, okay, like to see it.
Ciao, my friend.
Okay, ciao, ciao.